My full name is
Yeah.
Glenna Joines. I grew up in North Carolina in a very small town and went to a local high school, and then went to Appalachian State Teachers College and got my degree in teaching. And then met my husband there. He was a teacher also, and he got a job with Bendix, so that meant we moved to South Bend. My mom and dad were both worked in a hosiery mill, and I was born during the Depression, so we were just fortunate that they had jobs. And so I had 2 brothers and a sister. So it's, just an average family near my grandparents and aunts and uncles, and then I moved away. Well, I think growing up, family life was so different. My grandparents lived nearby, and my mom had 7, there were 7 children in her family. And one of my favorite things to do was I would go up, I would spend the day with my grandma and grandpa. And he was a farmer, and after lunch, we would go sit in the swing, and he would teach me to read music. It was a time of self-sufficient things. We grew our own vegetables. We had a cow and a pig and chickens, so we were very self-sufficient. So, and then during the war, of course, that was a time when I was in 8th grade when World War II started. And of course, lots of my relatives and friends joined the services right away. So it was a time of rationing and all kinds of things like that. But we lived through it and came out the better for it, I guess. I started singing solos in school. Of course, in those days, entertainment was at schools. We had a lot of plays, we had a lot of things for the community to come in. So I grew up with a lot of music, a lot of singing, and we never got in the car with my family without singing. I taught 4th grade mainly. I taught others grades too off and on, but 4th grade was my favorite, and it was just teaching. In those days, we didn't have to teach to the test. We could actually be creative and try to teach children and not a test. Well, he worked for the CEO at Bendix. He was the administrative assistant to him, and he was very involved in community. He was president of the Kiwanis at one time. He worked on one of the mayor's committees, and very active. We've been members of First Baptist. And he was very active in church, so the 2 of us did a lot of that, a lot of community kind of things. We lived here from 1955 until 1969, and Bendix moved to Michigan. So you know what that meant. We moved to Farmington Hills, Michigan, and lived there for 3 or 4 years. Then he was transferred to International. So we moved to Connecticut. He worked in downtown Manhattan. So then they decided to send us to Barcelona.
Wow.
So for 3.5 years, we lived in Barcelona. One summer, we decided to camp. And we camped in Andorra and in Germany, right outside of Munich, and right outside of Paris, and Liechtenstein, so many of the different places. So it was quite a time, but it was also an interesting time in Spain. We were there when Franco died, so we saw it go from a dictatorship to a monarchy, more or less, at that time. So to see it change overnight was being there at a very historical time. It's been such an amazing journey to go from a very small town to seeing so much of the world. So it was a very interesting time, and then we came back to Detroit area.
Yeah.
And then he was named manager of the Dayton plant. So we moved to Dayton, Ohio. But anyway, he decided he could retire. So we retired back to North Carolina, to Winston-Salem. And then our son came down, and he came down and said, "Mom, start packing." And I said, "Start packing? Why?" He said, "I want Dad to come and work with us." So that was the magic word. I have 3 children. Mike is my oldest, and Denise is next. Denise lives in Seattle. She works for a nonprofit. There's one woman donor, and she was one of the first 5 in Bill Gates' office. So you can imagine she did all right.
Yeah.
I hate having her so far away, but then my younger son, Tim, works for his brother. So, and I have 6 grandchildren and 2 granddaughters-in-law and 1 grandson-in-law. So, and 3 greats.
Wow.
With children, you know that you have a great responsibility. And with grandchildren, you just enjoy. And the same with great grandchildren. You know, I did my job, and hopefully my kids and grandkids are going to be good parents. And so far they have been very good. When you hold that first one, you realize all of a sudden this world is going to change in every possible way. And I'm very fortunate that they've all 3 made good choices, and my grandchildren have. So, you know, it makes you feel good to see it continue on. And I have another great-granddaughter on the way, Kelly's. So it's, you know, life has been very good. Ups and downs, but you learn to cope and to look forward to new adventures. And with moving so much, you realize, okay, you're leaving good friends. You may lose acquaintances, but you are not losing friends. Because, for instance, now with Facebook, I can keep up with people that I've known in all different places I've been.
Mm-hmm.
So I've tried to teach my children that, you know, okay, it's a new adventure.
Yeah.
that you have to make the most of, and so we try to do that. My children were concerned about me living alone without a community around me, and they know that I've always been, quote, a people person. And so we investigated different places, but my daughter-in-law's mother was here, and they liked it so well, and she adjusted so well that we just looked around and decided that it was time. I've met so many interesting people and had so many interesting experiences. And I can look out my window and see those beautiful trees, but the people here are so friendly. You have dinner with different people, and I have found so many connections. They have something here called Forever Learning, and it's for seniors. And they have classes in so many different areas. There's German, and there's Spanish, and gardening, all kinds of interesting things. To live each day. Don't think about how many you've lived, but just savor every minute of every day. So, to me, that would be the best.